again, given that you represent PwC, and PwC is, amongst many other things, also known for their audits. And audits means reporting. And you had touched upon this topic when we were speaking earlier. What gets measured gets reported, and what gets reported obviously becomes public, and the transparency. Do you think there should be, I don't know, it's just a wild thought, but I want to put it on the table. Like many of the things that we are measuring and auditing, should this also be an area which should get audited? And amongst many other things that you talked about, pay equity, promotion equity, roles, leadership roles in diversity. Is that the way to go? Parmesh.
Does Padmaja want to answer that? Yeah, no, I just put my hand because I wanted to make a comment later, but maybe Padmaja after you. Yeah.
Padmaja, would you have a view on this?
I'm sorry, you were talking about pay equity and promotions and whether there should be quotas?
No, what I was saying is that because we do have reporting that we audit, and what gets audited gets the focus because it is reported and it's transparent and it is public information. Yeah. We don't have anything right now which is getting measured and published and audited.
No, it's an interesting point, Suresh, and I have heard both views of this. And sometimes I wonder what my own view is, because I used to feel very passionately that it shouldn't be a number game, right? That it should be a culture of meritocracy and merit will prevail. But I have also heard enough views that argue that that's a very privileged point of view, right? To say that meritocracy will prevail. And it doesn't really take into account that there are differences in terms of a starting point, right? In fact, there was one point that I saw in the chat. One of the questions was about equity versus equality. Yes. So it is a privileged point of view, and sometimes it helps to have these. I've also heard the point of view that says, look, you have targets for everything you take seriously as an organization. You have targets on revenue and bottom line and market share. And if this is important enough, why not? So I think it doesn't make sense to run behind only the number, but I would also not feel it's fair to say, hey, we're doing a lot, but the number is not coming, right? I think it has to be both. The number without the substance doesn't make any sense. But if we have so much of substance, then it should result in the number. I mean, that's the way I look at it. It's not about tick in the box.
Ramesh, you wanted to say something?
I actually wanted to just add on to the previous question and also a point here. So the previous question was about, positive discrimination. And I just wanted to say that, yes, I actually believe that having positive discrimination for, dimensions of D&I that you want to push on will make a difference. And there are enough examples where this has happened, even with the UN and so on. They have said, and this has worked in the past, say for gender, saying that, we need to have so percentage, because otherwise people come up with innovative ways of for all open positions, but you know what? Everyone we chose happened to be a man or whatever, right? So I think one has to really push and maybe not have quotas, because that seems to be like a word that people don't like, but just have very strong indicators of this is where you want to go. Because otherwise people have a bias towards inaction and status quoism. So I think there really needs to be a strong nudge towards positive discrimination, and one can work in an organization however one wants in that. You can have targets linked to compensation. That always works. Trust me, when you tell people your salary is going to be docked if you don't have this, suddenly they find the talent. Isn't that amazing? The people that they were saying earlier, oh, we couldn't find the talent. Suddenly, when their money is on the line, they find it. So there's various nudges that one can use, but I firmly believe that positive discrimination is the way to go. The second thing is, with link to that is, I think a lot of companies waste a lot of time I mean, they have this engineering mindset that everything has to be ready, then we will bring in diversity. Whereas today's world, you need design thinking mindset. You need to go in a direction and rapidly iterate. So one thing is, of course, when you have PWD and so on, you need to make sure you have ramps and things like that. But I would say hire a bunch of people and work alongside the people as well as the incredible community organizations which are out there and iterate on your journey. Otherwise, you will spend years and thinking, maybe we need a ramp, maybe we need this, maybe we need a crash, maybe we need this. You'll spend so much time in thinking, and there'll be that one person who will always be playing devil's advocate at every meeting. So 5 years will go by and you will not do anything. I would say start now and please iterate, work with the people. If you want to bring more LGBTQ people, it's not like rocket science, but hire some LGBTQ people. We will tell you what we need. If you want to bring more PWD, hire them. No, I mean, that's how it works, right? That's number 2. And number 3, in terms of the audit, I think what has really worked in terms of, at least in other parts of the world, are indexes. Again, linked to say what Manisha and Padmaja and others were saying, right? I just want to read out this bit about the human rights campaign in the US from the book, right? We started a corporate equality index some years ago. And they included LGBTQ as a dimension, right? And this is what we are working with a lot of these organizations in India as well. Keshav Suri Foundation, Pride Circle, Stonewall from the UK is launching an LGBTQ equality index this year. Great Place to Work is considering it, and so on, right? Because a lot of companies care about how they're perceived, how they want to attract talent, and so on. Indexes have really worked as an important nudge. So in 2002, for example, when this Human Rights Campaign Index was launched in the US, only 13 companies out of the Fortune 500 received a perfect 100 in terms of LGBTQ, best place to work for LGBTQ equality. This number has went up to 193 businesses in 2019. In 17 years, 180 more companies leapt up and got a 100 score. So I think one has to use nudges like these to kind of push. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't want to be having these conversations 5 years down the line, right? I want to move to like more exciting conversations. Whether we should or we shouldn't is like, of course we should. Let's do it.
Exactly. Pallavi, you wanted to say something?
Just a quick point to make. Just adding on to what Padmaja and Parmesh were mentioning right now. Return on ROI in diversity, actually return on investment, that has been like a new debate coming in, since last 1 year. So every time, and it is always a challenge for diversity practitioners, because justify what was the outcome and annually or whatever, quarterly, etc. While diversity, we have all been saying that it is a gradual process, changing mindset, and it cannot showcase immediate impact as such. It requires at least 2 years, span to do a longitudinal study to see how the mindset changes have happened. And that's quite a long duration. So definitely a metric does help. So it is a quantitative measure of diversity, like we're talking about the diversity hiring numbers or keeping a target on, certain diverse representation at different job levels or certain job roles, or based on certain business, or where we can leverage diversity and how we want to showcase that diversity and take in phase wise in different businesses. So all those things definitely are something like a quick tracker that we can have, because larger outcome and the impact, the stories of actually how a certain program impacted does take a span. Like, it cannot be just a program ended and we say that, okay, this is now the impact, because this is about dealing with the minds of, lakhs of employees, and it cannot be changed in a shorter thing. So it does help to have, a proper diversity metric, and also building it into the risk framework of organization. I think most of the organization do have it there. So, it is subject to audits on a regular basis on certain critical elements on talent of what other areas, be it hiring, be it the succession planning of the organization, promotion cycles, etc. And even certain organizations have gone beyond, like tracking it and how even the conversations, the appraisal conversations, tracking those conversations of how inclusive they were, or whether they were inclusive or it was just one-way conversation which was assumed to be inclusive, because there's also a very funny thing that, if two people are talking, it's considered inclusive, whether it was inclusive or not. So we have to see that it's not just having two people talking to each other, but that conversation needs to be inclusive as well. So yeah, that definitely helps to track it.
I think I would just add one more point to this. I think what Parmesh said makes a lot of sense. One cannot do without the other. So while we will focus on creating the culture and creating the right, right place to work, but if you're not tracking metrics, then this cannot work. So one cannot work without the other. So it's extremely important to have both the things in place. And so I totally agree that, both are important in their own right to